All right. Good afternoon. We are live now. Sorry about the delays. Okay. There you go. You're not just good in what you do, you're good at technology as well. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so sorry about this mishap that happened here. We had done all the preparations beforehand. And as things would happen, I was telling Monde, there's what is called Murphy's Law, where everything suddenly just goes wrong. And I really apologize to all of you for that glitch there, especially on our first podcast for this 2022. It's been a long while, busy with other projects. You will get to know about those projects as the time goes on. And but I'm so happy today that we're all here at this moment of insight and growth. And I'm so passionate about this program that we're doing here because it's about ensuring that we grow in so many ways. This program is intended to help us look at issues that we normally look at from a different perspective and grow in the process. And it helps us to see things differently. Now, this is our first session for this year, and I want to welcome you to it. I won't get so much into all the normal preliminaries because of the time. I can see people are joining. Please send a message to friends, family, and make sure that they are able to join us as well and interact with us. We have an hour in which to do everything that we have to do. My name is Patrick Lunwabo Kulati, and I'm the host of this program. The program is called Moment of Insight and Growth. And the intention is to really is to create an insight in our minds and to grow us as a result of that insight. That's really the reason why we are here. And I'm see Umfundisi Usiv Kotela is here. Looking forward to the engagement. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that. I see that Ujola Mziwelanga, Masabata Matabo Mahato, Monde Lot is here, and other people are streaming in. And I'm so happy that you are all able to join us both on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Now, let's get down to it. So today, I have an honor and a happy privilege to host a person I highly respect. He's a young man of great intellect and intelligence, as well as humility. There's one thing about that I've noticed in you, Monde, from a distance at least, a sense of humility around you. When I see you sometimes at church or somewhere, and no one could ever say about the impact that you are making, the kind of insights that you have out there. It really is something that really is inspiring to me. So that's why I've always wanted to have this interview with him. And we started chatting last year and this and that. But here it is. We are here today. I'm talking about Monde Lawton Ndlovu. He is the head of advocacy and thought leadership at the Black Management Forum, which is a great institution of Black excellence. Many great leaders of the Black business have come through the ranks of this great organization. He's a board trustee, non-executive director. He's also doing his MBA, a speaker, as a writer. A man, I don't know where do you get the time to do all of these things that you're doing, Monde? But really, I'd like to say to you, welcome. Please say hello to our viewers.
Thank you very much, my elder. It's a privilege to be part of your international platform because these platforms are international. They're not just domestic and regional, but they're international platforms. And the thing about these platforms is that they'll always be there in time immemorial because of the advancement of technology. So whatever we say here will be registered forever, eternally. So
Wow.
until time falls back on itself. So it's really a privilege for me to be here. Yeah, no, I really thank you for the kind words. I'm not sure if you are describing me there, but thank you for the kind words. We really try to do what we can where we are, and knowing very well that there's an opportunity for all of us to make a difference in one area or another, with the time that we have, with the gifts and talents that we have, to make a difference and to choose a cause that resonates with ourselves, and contribute to it, and also give space for others to also contribute to it. Once you've made your contribution, move on and allow others to come in, and hopefully they'll make a better contribution, because that's the whole point of leadership. But I think we'll get into that just now as well. So thank you very much for being patient with me. I know I've been ducking and diving. So I don't know if this was the first.
You're gonna share with us just now some of the reasons behind that, because I think those are valid reasons. It's a huge responsibility. We're gonna get into it just now, but I'm glad that finally I've got you here, and I hope that your family is watching as well. Tando, Zoleka, mom, and sisters are watching, and everybody else. And if they are there, I know that they're a very great family. And thank you so much for watching. So, Monde, let's get looking at the time here. Let's get to the nub of this thing. Just before you tell us about the responsibility that you bear at Black Management Forum, one of the key things that I always want to start with is a little bit of a background to my guest, because for us Black people, sometimes we don't have the privilege of seeing a person when we grow who finally goes up to becoming as impactful as you are. And so sometimes we don't understand how they grew up and all of that. So it's always important for people to understand. Just tell us a brief about you, where you went to school and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. It's a very important question, because I mean, you can even spend a good hour just talking about where someone comes from to understand where they are, and then the rest just becomes commentary. It really becomes commentary. So thanks for the question. So I was born 1988. So I'm 34 this year, and by the time I was born, especially as a young boy, I remember a lot of conversations and a lot of concepts thrown around me, because my father was heavily involved with the BMF, heavily involved in transformation. So, you know, words like affirmative action, phrases like affirmative action, I had no idea what was that all about. But I was surrounded by that, listening to him on radio, talking about those things. My sisters would phone in, by the way, as well. Watching him on television, articulating, you know, these things. I had no idea what those things were really about, and he deliberately exposed me to some stuff, and I'll give you just a brief some of those stuff. So yeah. So when I grew up, a lot of transformation talk, BMF this, BMF that, Netcore this, which is the previous name for Nedbank Group.
Yes.
Netcore. Surrounded by that. When I was born in the township, Vosloorus, Extension 2. And a couple of years later, we moved out into other places in Johannesburg. I attended many schools. I attended St. Catherine's. I attended Saheti, which is a Greek school. I attended.
Can you speak Greek?
Kalimera. Kalimera.
Okay.
Which means hello.
Okay.
And quite an interesting cultural school. the Greeks very passionate about their culture,
Yes.
and putting money where their mouth is as well. They used to do major fundraisings to fundraise for the sustenance of the school. And of course, the Greeks in South Africa, big community, highly resourced as well in South Africa. George Bezos has a building named after him there as well. So the Greeks are quite interconnected. In fact, all minority groups in South Africa are better connected than Black people who are the majority.
And I want us to talk about that because
sure.
it's another thing that and I've added a question to the ones that I've given you, but it's going to be about that because I want to talk about that particular issue.
Sure. So from there I went to Drakensberg Boys Choir School. So I went there to sing. I thought I was going there to sing. And when I got there, I learned more about discipline and myself and life more than the music. As much as the music, is the main thing because it's a choir school. It's not a school choir. So so everything surrounds the choir. 2 hours of choir every day. Forced to do musical theory as well, almost every day. Every Wednesday was the choir concerts every Wednesday. They're at school. Massive international tourist attraction around the Berg there, Central Berg, recognized as one of those areas in South Africa to visit. And the discipline that came with it, and I'll never forget, our choir masters were basically an extension of our parents because they were very strict, with the music, very strict with time. Everything had to be jotted down to time. If rehearsal is an hour, it's an hour and it ends on the dot. The concert is 2.5 hours with an intermission of 20 minutes. That's exactly what it is. So the discipline or that enables you to be musically excellent is the same discipline you need to fashion your own life.
To do anything basically in life.
Yeah, so it was not just about the music. It really was about the principles of discipline. The majority of guys after Drakensberg were not necessarily in music. They went on to do other things, but the musical bone still there. Others, continued and became great things in music. Other choir masters like Tax Camarata at University of Pretoria. One of the Barrett brothers, he's an ex-Traki. The Bala brothers, all of them, all three of them are ex-Trakis. So you see guys that have gone on to continue with music, but the majority of us didn't pursue music as a major in life. So after that,
you sort of went other directions.
Yes, because the school goes from it ends in grade 9, so you must find another school to finish your matric. So from grade 10 to matric. So
let's skip the matric part and go to what did you do at university that made you to be doing the kind of work that you're doing now? Did you think that you were going to go this way, or did you study to become an engineer or something?
So it's quite interesting. So I've always loved economics. So in grade 10 specifically, I was introduced to economic geography. Geography. So I started to fall in love with the system of banking, how banks create money, and how they sustain themselves, and all of those interesting concepts around the banking sector. So I really started to fall in love with banking. At the same time, there was something else also developing within me around advocacy, in terms of speaking up around Black issues. I mean, I'd been an activist in school for the longest time, and it was quite interesting. I would advocate for things and not and look neat, by the way. And I always mention this when people ask me about that, to say I looked neat because people think that there's a predisposition that if you are advocating for something, you're an activist, you are pushing a black agenda, it coincides with looking scruffy and looking. It's a serious problem.
Yes, it is.
And
as a result of that, sorry to cut in here, people
Sure.
don't take such activists seriously. They don't take them seriously. They are viewed as disruptors and people who are just messing everything up.
Yes. So I didn't look like that. That was, it was a bit of a strange thing for especially white teachers. This guy sounds political, but he's got an interesting disposition. His shirt is tucked in all the time. His shoes are polished. Doesn't make a lot of noise, but he speaks when he thinks he should speak, and when he speaks, people are taken aback. So that was also quite interesting as well, in terms of my approach to advocating for things at a young age. Talking about Black issues. They tried to rope me into some Black hair committee. They like to do that thing, some of these schools. And I just told them it doesn't make sense. Why do you want to police Black people and their hair?
Their hair.
I'm not going to be part of that. So and that was that. So I studied economic geography in grade 9, and obviously I took it up to matric. I fell in love with economics, and I wanted to know more about economics and business. So I'd always known that I'd want to do a business degree, whether I do it in Joburg or Western Cape. At some point, I wanted to go to Western Cape, but I'd been a boarder for too long. So for almost 6 years at different schools. So I wanted to be home. So I stayed. Yes, I wanted to be home, and so I stayed home, and I pursued a BBA degree, majoring in business management and economics. So I took economics to third level, monetary economics in third level. And then over the years, I did a postgrad in management practice. And then now I'm almost done with my master's in business administration. So I've always known that, I wanted to pursue a business degree. I liked issues on the economy. Well, I wanted to have a good understanding of the economy. At some point, I wanted to be the Reserve Bank governor. Still possible.
It's still possible. It's a great dream.
It's still possible. I think it's a very powerful position, especially around the economy and how influential the Reserve Bank is, as much as a lot of fire around it the past few years around the mandate, which is the broader question of how can the Reserve Bank play a role in transforming the country. So I've always really enjoyed reading up about that, understanding the economy, and then coupled then with the transformational issues. So put them together. Someone who has an understanding of both concepts, where they converge and ought to converge, to really build the country and build my understanding. So on your other question, how did I know? How did I know that I wanted to pursue what I'm doing now? I want to be very honest with you. I did not want to work at the BMF.
Okay.
I didn't want your dream. To work at the BMF, no. To be an activist, yes. To be educated, yes. To get involved in business, yes. To challenge the status quo, yes. I've been doing that as a kid already. So that stuff was already in me. It was just a matter of finding different platforms of expression over time. But the BMF specifically, I did not want to go in there because my father played a big role in the BMF.
Yes.
So what am I doing there? You know, why are you here? Because already, if you step into this the plate, say, "Oh, this is Global's boy," and it attracts a lot of perspectives. It can attract criticism as well, which is welcome.
Some people might say it's just a silver spoon. You don't deserve it. You know, you don't have the way we thought it was just handed to you because your dad was a major player there. But clearly it has been, I'm sure whoever had that thought has been proven wrong, because you've been doing a great job, and I want us to transition to that. You can pick up on the pieces that you felt you wanted to pick up, but I just want us to transition to where you are now. What is the position of head of advocacy and thought leadership entail in briefly? Because I see you writing, I see you on TV, I hear you on radio. What is that position about?
So so what happened was, a few years ago, the BMF was looking at restructuring its head office. So restructuring and seeing how to better align with the strategy, the board strategy, and the kind of structure that should exist. So that's the first point. So the new structure that we have is still fairly new. It's not even 5 years old. It's about just under 2 years.
Okay.
So that was just on the brink of COVID, but discussions were being held as to how do we align, the structure to the strategy, and not the other way around, which is a major challenge generally in organizations. And the issues of organizational culture. But anyway, let me park that. So you have now.
Please don't mind me when I jot you in somewhere there. All right.
Okay.
I don't mind me. Just carry on with your thoughts.
Okay, no, it's fine, no problem.
Yeah.
So you have then your head of programs department. You have your stakeholder relations department. You have your advocacy and thought leadership department, which are your frontline departments, and then the supporting functions. Yes, facilities, marketing and communications, finance, and human resources. Then you have your board committees as well, which are supporting the work of the board, etc. And then you look at the mandate of the organization, the business model of the organization. You take it back to when it started in 1976. There was the side of management development. So we want to develop Black managers into the system. One of the criticisms at the time was that, why is BMF wanting to have its own thing and develop Black managers? There was already an Afrikaner management organization, and they were trying to persuade Obabu, Eric Mafuna, and the colleagues at the time. No, why don't you guys join that one? And their position was clear. We want to start something for Black people, built by Black people, for Black people. Right? So they were unapologetic about that. That was the one side of the organizational business model, which is developing managers on one side, and on the other side, the issue of dialogue. And it was through dialogue that they would tackle topical issues, get to know each other, refine ideas. And out of those things, interesting things came up, like the mentorship. There's mentorship paper that was developed in the early 1980s. So very interesting things came about, but there was no advocacy at the time. There was no advocacy. And then if you move to 1985, 86, the state of almost at state of disaster, thinking with here.
Yes.
It was a
State of emergency.
Right.
State of emergency. Yes.
State of emergency shook a lot of organizations, including the BMF, and they then had to decide, how do we move forward as an organization? And there were some changes, and BMF then started to, advocate for positions, started to challenge the status quo directly now. They were working in the economic side of things, wearing that cloak, right? Wearing a corporate cloak, but articulating political views, right? Underneath that cloak. So again, it was that combination of, we are managers, but we can think, right? We are managers, but we can challenge the status quo, right?
Yes.
We are managers and ill-treated by the corporates and the businesses that they were part of, but they were politically conscious.
And it's a powerful combination,
very powerful combination. And the ANC at the time, especially in exile, they heard that, hey, there's a group of young Black intellectuals in Johannesburg, right? Because there was that gap again of leadership in the country in terms of speaking up during that period. BMF became one of those voices. The things that, or the late Don Mkhwanazi, my father as well. They really shook the establishment with the things that they were saying.
Talking about your father, I read up an article written by Elder Willie Tabe, which came out last year. I mean, it was powerful, written about your dad and the contribution that he made, but most importantly, the values that generation of leaders seem to have had. There was no rumors of corruption, incompetence, Black, just everything. They were just a crop of people to aspire to. Sorry, I disturbed you there.
No problem. I think you can see that if you don't disturb me, I'm going to be elongative, right? So I'm just so please disturb me there.
Okay.
So I was giving that background to show you and to show the viewers of the continuity of the thinking around the structure and the restructuring of the organization and leading to where I am now, which is very important to see the golden thread cut across from the mid-70s, the 80s, and then the 90s, the early 90s, punctuating the position of the BMF in terms of how do we transform management structures, and then they birthed the Basotho Hat model, right? Which was championed by affirmative action. So that became the position of the BMF, and them coming up with that framework, that model, in order to drive affirmative action, and also deploying key people to go sit in the Department of Labor to make sure that the thinking of the BMF finds expression in the Employment Equity Act, which is critical. And that's what they did. They really pushed that far to say, no, we want to protect our thinking and it should find expression. And about 60% of the act really was borrowed from the thinking of the BMF at that time. Then the Triple BE issue as well, which came about in the promulgation of the act in 2003. The BMF said, you know what, the country has no direction, Triple BE, this is mid-90s. We're calling for a commission on Black economic empowerment. And the current president was requested by Deputy President Mbeki at the time to chair the commission. And I'll share what the current president has said to the BMF around, what he's requested us to do around BE. I'll come back to that as well. So then over the years, and even the challenges with the procurement bill as well, procurement act, which is now exploding. It has exploded now.
Yeah.
And people are really a bit confused as to what exactly is happening. Some people,
Yeah, it's very confusing, man.
confusing.
I read up that that guy Dodo, the Director General of Treasury, trying to explain, but still I couldn't work out. But carry on, because I want us to because I will come back to this issue of the commission on Black empowerment, because I think it's a very interesting thing, because it provides sort of reports as we go along, so that we can assess how the country is going through. And let me take you there right now, because I think we now know you a bit. We know a bit more about Black economic empowerment, your Black Management Forum, and the work that you're doing there, which is about really mobilizing, advocating, changing policy, and things like that. And if by so means it's you wanted to add something, feel free. I just want to acknowledge some of the people that have joined here. I see that Juba Kuzwayo. Hey, Juba, you are in overseas now. I don't know. I think I forget the state now. Siposeti Obongwana. Welcome, guys. Zoleka Mapela. Good to see you. Makoba Bua. Hey, Nibani. Good to see you, man. Yonela Majola James. Good to see you. Sabelo Ndanjana. Hey, man. Good to see you. Totielo Libumbe. Bikoli. Good to see you. And if there are some of you who I haven't mentioned yet, please bear with me. But there are some questions that are coming through here, but I will come back to those questions. Now, I was reading an extract from the 2017 budget review, which talks about the issue of transformation and inclusive growth. And they say that, I just want to quote, to realize the vision of the Constitution, South Africa needs transformation that opens a path to inclusive economic growth and development. Growth without transformation would only reinforce the inequitable patterns of wealth inherited from the past. And transformation without economic growth would be narrow and unsustainable. Now, we read this almost every year from the budget review statements. Where are we with transformation? Are you, as BMF, happy? Firstly, but for us to understand what you mean by transformation, please define it for us. What do you mean by economic transformation in this context? And then you'll elaborate on the first question that I asked.
Okay, so economic transformation basically is the redefining of economic power in the country. Transformation, if you separate transformation from the economy, transformation, just to simplify it from all its frills and technicalities, is change, right? It is the breaking away from the past and moving into a future which we have not experienced as a collective in the country. So it's breaking away from the past. So what happened in the past, right? So we've got to look at how Black people or how our human capital has not been fully utilized, right? So that is not just only during the apartheid era, but pre-apartheid, right? Separate development which existed pre-apartheid. So it's over 400 years of separate development, of subjugation, of underdevelopment of Black people, which means the underdevelopment of the human capital in the country. So the economy itself is only relying on the consumption of the majority. But in terms of creating opportunities to grow the pie, economic pie, we still at loggerheads as to how to do it. But the existing established business is more than keen to not to fundamentally change economic patterns in the country. Now, then when you think about it again, so if you want to break away from the past, there's three specific ills that we're trying to focus on. That is PIU, poverty, inequality, unemployment. And sometimes I add a fourth issue there. I say there's a leadership crisis. So there's an L. I would add an L sometimes. So suffering from a PIUL. Because without the L, or correct understanding and application of the L, you won't be able to fully deal with the PIU. So
because the PIU needs leaders, capable and competent leaders to address it.
Yes, it needs capable leaders to really address that issue. So, and of course, the countless reports, whether you look at global reports, the World Bank, more recent report looking at the SADC region, and commenting on the SADC region and South Africa, illustrating again that South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. As much as you have a couple of Black people in the top 10% wealthiest individuals in the country, there are Black people in the top 10%, but the inequality continues to widen, right? So, and you look at the budget speech again. I think we were quite lucky that the minister did not either raise VAT or raise our income tax. If it wasn't for the windfall, if it wasn't for the commodity price boom, which enabled the government not to make major moves there on the one side, and also SARS also becoming a little bit more efficient in its collection. So if it wasn't for that combination, we probably would have been in a worse position. So you must be grateful for that windfall. But will it be sustainable going forward? And the answer is no. Now there's the oil crisis now that is upon us with Ukraine and Russia, and the inflation issue. And again, we've seen the SARB increase interest rates. So economic transformation. You put those two concepts together. You really want to redefine economic power and patterns of ownership, which is the key issue. So who owns the economy? Who manages the economy? Who controls the economy? Right. So we know that Black people don't own the economy. Right. The factors of production. Black people come into the factors of production as labor. As much as there's few entrepreneurs who are there. If you look at Black billionaires in the country, you only have Dr. Patrice Motsepe. But outside of African Rainbow Minerals, who can you really say is really moving in that direction? So there's structural issues impeding. There's human capital issues. There's domestic capital issues in terms of investment. What is the attitude of domestic business? There's international investment drive, which the president is dealing with. Last week, we saw the investment summit happening again. But again, to what extent is the imperatives of transformation part of those conversations? So, like I said to you, who owns, who manages,
who controls?
And
those are important factors.
And when we talk about economic transformation, you've got to be very clear that we want Black people to own the economy. We want Black people to manage the economy. We want Black people to control the economy. And then you got to take it a step further. You got to now look at which sectors are contributing, or industries are contributing most to gross domestic product, because we use those economic indicators. As we speak now, finance is the biggest industry, and it's growing on average by 2% to its contribution to GDP. Manufacturing is sitting at around 13%. The question of industrialization or reindustrialization of the country, right? And trade, government, where are they sitting? Agriculture is less than 5%, by the way, to its contribution to GDP. Mining, which has been the backbone of the economy, is sitting at less than 10% to its contribution to GDP. So we really gotta really look at what's happening in terms of the numbers coming out of what kind of economy we have, who's controlling the JSE in terms of ownership, and the whole debate on the JSE as well around ownership or black ownership. Now we have to say direct ownership. Why?
Direct ownership, yeah.
We have to say direct ownership now because there's indirect ownership, which the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition have allowed the equity equivalent concepts to come into play to confuse the whole issue of how do we define ownership in the economy, right? So already when you look at how do we own the economy, there's a lot of question marks happening there. Now then you go to the Triple B Act, right? What does the Triple B Act say about ownership? There's principles that underpin the ownership aspect of Triple BEE. Even when you say Triple BEE in the country, people are only thinking these ownership deals when the Triple BEE framework has 5 elements. Right? So there's ownership, there's management control, skills development, there's SCD, which is a supply enterprise development, and socioeconomic development. And usually when I speak about some of these things, the socioeconomic development, I think people still don't know what that ought to do. Like what is happening with what is happening with that and with all of the elements. But we know with management control, there is another commission. There's the Employment Equity Commission. They will be releasing their latest report not long from now. And I'll share some of those stats with you in terms of what's happening with Black people and management control. So when we're talking transformation, we're talking the breaking away from the past. We're talking the full utilization of the human capital so that the country, the economy can be more productive. We're talking the ownership of the economy. We're talking the management of the economy. We're talking the controlling of the economy by Black people.
Let me come right there, because in one of your articles you're talking about the Black people being the majority in numbers, but economic minority in reality. Now, if Black people are the majority and they have a Black government that they've elected, the question that I want to ask, because when you look at the instruments, the legislative instruments that you're talking about, you can talk about the BEE, you can talk about affirmative action, you're talking about the corporate companies. You'll find that, and someone can say cynically, guys, you have the government. Why is it that Black people cannot establish their own? You've identified the finance industry, the mining, and all of that. Why is it that you want to look at Sanlam, which was set up by some whoever is in the past? You guys want to transform that instead of pushing the agenda of building from scratch. You know, I sometimes listen to this guy called Penwell. He's quite on YouTube here. And he talks about the fact that he had something which is called Buy Black, which was about linking to what you were saying earlier on about the minority groups being united, buying from one another. Why is it that Black business and Black consumers cannot come together and get the money to circulate among? Because it seems as if all these instruments are targeted at the old companies that were there. We found them in the economy. Is that a difficult thing to do? Is that a simplistic analysis of how things are?
You know, the backlogs that we experience, I think we undermined the amount of transformational work that needs to go into breaking away from the past. You look at even spatial transformation. You look at how the townships were designed. You know, you can't, if you stay in the townships today, at least Soweto has got more than one entrance today. They've tried to open it up. I'm just looking at just spatial transformation and its effect on the working class. So you really gotta get up very early in the morning. You've got to catch 2 or 3 taxis to go to work, because industry now is not in close proximity. Industry is far. So, and I'm raising this issue to say the amount of transformational work that we thought we understood, we didn't quite understand when South Africa came into political power, or Black people came into political power in 1994. The euphoria, the euphoria of the Rainbow Nation almost blindsided us. In fact, blindsided the majority, blindsided us to such an extent that only, I think about 10 years, 11 years after 1994, we started to see service delivery protests.
Yeah.
So you've got political power, you've got, you've got working at national government, provincial government, but actually where it matters most is really on the ground. That's your local government sphere. If you're starting to have service delivery protests 10 years after, around 10 years after 1994, it shows you that within the first 10 years, and you had the macroeconomic policy issues again with the RDP, etc. How do we develop this country? The other thing which came up in that first 10 years was the concentration of a few businesses in every industry. So even today, in a new industry that starts, without fail, there will be 3, 4, 5, 6 major white players. Without fail. Because the structure of the economy is such that, as much as it may change in terms of capital, and people can argue along those lines, but the fact of the matter remains that most industries in the country have major white players. Now, then the question is, if a Black person, and this will also touch on the procurement issue, if a Black person starts a business, starts a bank today, a commercial bank, there's many banks, commercial investment banks, cooperative banks, etc. I think a sleeping giant is the Stokvel industry. It's a multi-billion rand industry. If you convert that, and I know there's some guys that are trying to do that, convert that into commercial bank, a Black commercial bank. But you are having now, let's say you want to start a commercial bank in South Africa, right? And the Prudential Authority, Reserve Bank will have its requirements. You have got to meet certain thresholds. You've got to meet capital requirements, liquidity requirements, not just banking, but also insurance, right? We don't have many Black players in insurance, right? Because there are regulations there. So when we say, why don't we have our own Black businesses? It is without question that we need more Black businesses. It's a no-brainer. The issue is the route to market. The issue is the structure of the industry. The issue is the cartels that still exist, as much as they don't maybe exist in name. The Competition Commission is sitting on a lot of issues there. And not so long ago, the commercial banks colluded with pricing, right? A few years ago. So you can see that these industries are well networked. The major established businesses are well networked. And then here comes a Black business to try and compete in the very space. Will they last if there's no proper support? That's why you need Black economic empowerment to break some of the behaviors in the system. You need those legislative frameworks to do that, because without them, there's no way that a Black business will grow organically and become an established industry player without some of those levers. So I think that the amount of work that needed to go into transforming the economy, we did not have a complete understanding, the depth of understanding of how deep the economic problem and economic question is in the country, right? Skills development, right? If you look at the skills numbers now, if you look at the highest qualifications, so you look at undergrads or degrees, which includes postgrads and all of that, it's less than 7% of the population as we speak. Diplomas, it's also less than 7%.
Sure.
TVET college certificates is less than 5%. Matric certificates, it's over 30%, right? It's almost 40% of the population. So you can see that there is a skills issue in the country. Then there's also this skills mismatch as well. And then on the issue of just looking at skills development and how much companies are spending, in our engagements with the B Commission, we're engaging about the JSE specifically. Now, the JSE had spent, the top 40 companies had spent around 11 billion rands in skills development. Then the question is, where's the impact of the 11 billion rand now? So even the measurement of the impact of the elements of transformation as expressed by broad-based Black economic empowerment and employment equity, that measurement is lacking. We're still lacking in researching the actual movement there. So I'm highlighting these things to say that transformation outside of the political issues is such an extensive work to restructure society. It's no child's play to do that. And then you add the political question within that issue, and it just exacerbates, the challenge. Now you have people deployed at local government who have no idea what they're doing, who are siphoning money, who get qualified audits. Many of the municipalities have got qualified audits, right? So there's a capacity issue. There's a leadership issue, and you've got to try and deal with those things, because if the local government is not working effectively and efficiently, even the businesses in those areas will pick up their operations and move to other provinces, which is something that we're seeing, right? The movement of operations from a particular municipality. You guys have struggled to provide us with water, electricity, etc. We're going to move our operations to another province. That impacts the development of that province, etc. So I'm really saying that the questions of transformation are really not simple. But we understand, all of us understand, that there is a serious problem with restructuring the society, right? Okay, so
no, that's fine. I'm doing this so that you can finish your point, and then I come and ask, because there's a question here by Pope addressing us, U.S. Congress. I don't know. It talks about, do you think it's a great idea to have a digital rand whereby we are cashless, Reserve Bank allocates and controls banking accounts, government hence has a real-time view of where the money is spent. Such a system benefits will be real-time. And then the other question is, sorry, oh man. Okay, there's the question here. Do BMF recognize and have plans to encourage development of rural areas, industrialize rural areas, as people are packed like sardines in urban areas looking for work? Back home they had land. This basically links to the question that I was asking, because I think so far you've really articulated the kind of problem situation that we're finding ourselves in. And so now the question is, what is it that BMF is coming up with to resolve the kind of big problems that we have? For example, this colleague is Jesuit Takeover USA is talking about the people being in the rural areas and coming to the towns. I've driven past Butterworth in the Eastern Cape and other places where they used to have factories and things like that. Those things are not there. The question that I'm trying to figure out, What is it that BMF is doing to resuscitate the township and rural economy, or at least to advocate for it? Are there things that you are putting in place to do that? Are there supportive systems, or that you are advising your people, members in those areas? If you can just engage with those questions.
Yeah. So the question of reindustrialization is something that we've been raising. It's definitely one of the points that I've been speaking about as well, that the country needs to be clear on where it wants to go economically and what are the key economic drivers of the country, and hence why you got to look at what's contributing to GDP, which is critical. Which industries are contributing to GDP, which industries have potential, which skills must align to those key economic drivers of the country. And that's really critical. And I specifically mentioned finance and manufacturing deliberately. Yes. Because finance and the whole financial system, banking and financial system is the backbone of the economy. So you've got to transform those first, in my view. You've got to transform the banking and financial services sector first. They have got to be fully transformed in order to give effect to transforming the rest of the economy. So if you don't get transformation right within the banking and financial services sector, you will have greater challenges in transforming the rest, right? So imagine, therefore, you have 4, 5, 6 commercial banks in the country, black commercial banks that have black leadership, that have a clear political consciousness, that got skill, that have the know-how, that have a clear mandate of why the banks exist outside of a profit-making motive. Now, when you have that combination, when you're now talking rural development, reindustrialization of the country, you'd be able to fund, right? And President Ramaphosa likes to talk about private and public blended finance, right? And these things need resources and capital. You wouldn't have had the question of there seems to be an investment strike domestically in South Africa. And that question has been there for many years. And President Mbeki has tried to answer that question as well, to say that because South Africa has been a miracle country, a miracle nation, the investors in the back of their minds are thinking South Africa will become another failed state. That is why they're not investing a lot in infrastructure, etc., as they can or as they should, because you cannot pick up a factory and run with it. And people laughed at that question, at that answer, sorry. They laughed at his answer. Some people laughed. But the depth of the statement is saying that business is not necessarily patriotic. And I'm arguing that the questions that are being asked, I think that they will answer themselves if we transform the most important industries first. Because if you do that, you are enabling the agenda of transforming the country and increasing the pie and investing in emerging black business, and ensuring you open up the supply chains as well of those businesses, and creating new black business within the system, and that will have a trickle-on effect. So I think it's important for us to, in my view, I'm arguing that there's key levers that you ought to have your hands on and turn those levers first, and there will be a ripple effect, a positive ripple effect, and therefore legislation is very powerful. Look at the state of disaster, right? Look at the power of legislation for government to be able to say what they say, and they're able to tell us what to do, and direct us the way they should. So that should show us how powerful legislation really is. Now, the question is, who has their hands on the levers of power? Because I tell you this, that if we had a government that was very clear on transforming the economy and therefore the society, business would follow the dictates and the tempo of government and leadership of the government. So if we don't get those things right and the implementation of the key things right, everything else that we're asking about, lack of development, reindustrialization, etc., will become something else. So we really got to get the key things right in order for there to be a ripple effect in transforming the country. So that is my view on the question that was asked. It was interesting, the issue of digital currency. What is the move there with digital currency, etc., and attracting also again regulation and legislation again with that. Do we want a state that has complete authority on everything? Not a state that you can't trust, you see. So and how far should the role of government go, right? Now I'm saying outside of the political challenges that we're having. How much control should it have? Should business be left alone to self-regulate in terms of transformation? In the current atmosphere, definitely not. It can't be left to self-regulate because it has proven that it can't self-regulate, even though there are calls to scrap BE, to scrap all the transformational laws. So what are you going to replace that with if you scrap all of that going forward? So it needs decisive leadership. It needs bold leadership. It needs genuine leadership, a leadership that's very clear on what they want to do with the country and the direction that we should go.
We will talk about exactly what is that leadership like, what kind of person, because from what I understand, if I've been following government for a long while in terms of economic policy, monetary, all of that kind of stuff, but you hear everybody articulating, as you are now saying, the kinds of issues. I mean, the governing party has identified in their diagnostic documents the issues. The question is, what kind of leadership would take us there, both in the private sector and the public sector? And in the private sector, I want to focus a bit on the Black leadership that is there. Because, I mean, at some point, I worked in the petroleum industry. I got a sense when I was there that when these guys come in, which is the senior management who are Black, for lack of a better word, they get given this template or with targets. Say, listen, this is the target in the marketing or sales department. Cut the budget, do this, deliver on this. Normally, what they would do first is to reduce the budget that goes to social development, for example. Because so the question I'm asking is, to what extent does the agency of Black leaders in these corporate organizations able to make things happen? Because sometimes you get a sense that they find themselves there and they are driven by the markets and the profit margins and all of those kind of stuff. So, and I want to acknowledge Pila Tause, good to see you. Sian Moia, Shumae, Tando Ndlovu, hey Mandlovu, and our sister wako Zoleka, Charlotte Ndlovu, good to see you. Sisi, Tem Kosi Machigela, good to see you, man. Duduzi, Mike Dube, Masabata, Matabo Mahabo, good to see you guys. The discussion is getting warm, and I'm just concerned that the time we've already gone past our time. But let's just address this particular issue, the agency of the leadership there, and I want us of the Black leadership, but also on the public leadership side to say, man, we've been talking about these issues for a long time. When are things going to change in our country? Especially it comes to economic transformation. Just to add a little bit, just rambling here, you were talking about these two industries, the finance and the other one, the financial industry, and the other one that you mentioned. Now, the banks, systems, and so on, those people, they are there to make money. Why is transformation important? Why should transformation be important to them if it might not give them the money that they want? Okay, I've given you quite a lot. So you pick and choose where you want to start.
So basically, you're asking about the business case for transformation. Making transformation a business imperative, you are creating a customer for another business. In a nutshell, you are just creating a customer client for another business who will then go and spend at another business, and that money multiply effect within the economy increases then the pie. I'll give you an example with the social grants, right? The 350 grants. National Treasury tells us that about 46% of the country is on one form of grant or another.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the results of the retailers, you look at ShopRite, for an example, released their results more recently. They are making profit, not just normal kinds of profit, right? They are making
insane
profit.
Insane amount of profit.
But let's look at this thing now.
Yeah.
46% of the population is on one form of social grant or another. You put 350 Rand into someone's hands, they are going to spend it.
Yeah.
They are likely to spend it on necessities, key necessities, which is your basic foods, etc. They will go to a ShopRite. They will go to, maybe not go to a Woolworths, if you're talking the working class, but you will go to those retailers, which some of them are now entering the townships, the township space, which is another problem again. But if we're looking from a consuming side, you are putting 350 Rand into someone's hands. They're going to go and spend it, which will then increase the viability of a retailer, food retailer. And at the end of their financial year, they will see that they've made more revenue because there's more money in the hands of the people, and the people are going to spend. Their propensity to save is another question, because over 70% of our disposable income in South Africa goes to servicing debt, etc. So there's also that challenge as well. So the business case for transformation from a consumer point of view is that when you bring on board more Black people into the economic system, you are giving them an opportunity to also build up other businesses through their spending patterns and spending habits. If you take money out of the Black community or out of Black hands, the economy is going to suffer because the economy is driven by consumption and spending. So your spending becomes someone else's income, and then it becomes an investment, or ought to be an investment of the business that receives that money and apportions it to either declare dividends for its shareholders, or reinvest it into the company, or reinvest it into social development, or whatever, right? So the case for transformation is logical. It is very much logical because you've got to develop the human capital. You got to invest in it because in future it will pay dividends for the organizations that plow money into skills development to build up their businesses, to have capacity to deliver and compete out in the marketplace. Those very same people that you're building up and investing in are becoming your instruments which build up the economy. And when you have more families or individuals who are coming in as family units, you will look at Black families. One person who works, increases the disposable potential of that particular family.
Others, yeah.
So now you're also now spending on other things, whether it's someone else's education, you're spending on food, you are spending on
transport,
this, and transport. That's
electricity,
business, right? So you are spending on business. So when you lift up a black person, you are lifting up a black family, you are lifting up a black community, which will also spend and increase the revenue of other businesses. So the case for transformation really should be straightforward. But those who are sitting on the other side, it makes sense anyway. It should make sense for a discovery to see transformation happen, because it now means that you've got this potential market, that untapped market. There's new consumers coming in that you want their attention. You want them to come and do business
and buy
with
your products and services.
To buy your products and services. So there is that business case for it, right? And they know, Discovery knows today, that if they want to continue working in South Africa, they know that the country needs to grow, right? So now people now try to talk about transformation in a different way, right? They want to talk about economic growth and inclusive growth, but they want to say directly, to say we must transform this for the sake of business. You see, because now business is now threatened. You see, so if there's a high unemployment rate, there's now other ills, which are the three ills which are increasing in the country. So if we spend, like I said to you, there's 11 billion rands from the top 40 JSE listed companies. If we're to do more research, we'll find out there's other billions, right, outside of the JSE listed companies in the private space as well. Not just there in the public sector as well. So if you were to really look at the impact and the movement of the monies which are there, and measure that impact accordingly, you will see that in actual fact, there is money to be spent on the business case for transformation. In creating.
I'm tempted. I know that I didn't warn you about this, but I'm tempted, especially in the light of what you were talking about now. There is this whole thing now with the Dudula movement, which is pushing out illegal business people in the townships and so on. The accusation there is that informal business has billions that are running. There's billions of rands within that circulation, but because the people that are running it, the spaza shops, all of that, are not legal, and the government is unable to take the money, to get anything out of that. And what's your, you don't have to answer this question, but have you as BMF thought about this whole thing about how do we improve the township economy in such a way that it also benefits the local citizens in a way that would dampen the kind of conflict that is there? Just briefly.
Okay, so briefly, the BMF is involved again at a legislative space, because I said that's one of the major levers in terms of really pushing transformation. So you gotta get those documents right. They've got to talk to the issues. So there is involvement there. For an example, BMF Soweto branch, as an example, focuses on the township economy and those things. And the Gauteng province as well has gotten involved at a policy level in terms of ensuring that the draft bill talks to some of those issues. So the involvement of BMF, it may not be overt, right?
Yeah.
It may not be overt in some spaces, but the presence of the organization, you must know it's there. It may not stay out there in public to say BMF is involved in the township economy, in the bill, right? There is BMF involved behind closed doors, and some of those things people may see or may not see. But I tell you now that the involvement of the BMF is there. Some of our leaders,
now we know it from you, from the horse's mouth. Great.
So there's even some of our leaders that are our members who sit on strategic positions within the public sector, who are affecting some of these things as leaders. Which now comes to your other question that you asked as to what role are Black leaders playing when they get told how to even spend some of these things at the top. I'll come back to that issue. But I'm just saying from a policy point of view, our people, members, branches involved in specific things. So like I said, Joburg branch focuses on, township economy. You have Sandton branch, which focuses a little bit on entrepreneurship and other transformational issues. You've got BMF Midrand, which has also a different focus on innovation. There's an innovation program which BMF Midrand does, right? So their focus may be slightly different, You got Ekurhuleni as well, which has its own, kind of focus. You have a BMF Joburg branch, and I'm a member of Joburg branch, which is your more traditional, employment equity focus. There as well, some policy work there. So the branches have got different personalities, different flavors, but the overall mandate of the organization is still what it is: the creation of critical mass of managers and leaders across the country, private sector, public sector, civil society, etc., and ensuring that we have the right kind of leaders that are leading in that space. Now, coming to your other question, the BMF is not, in my view, a membership-based organization. It is a mission-based, anchored on values, values-based leadership, and the whole question of values is critical and central to leadership. When leaders ascend those positions, and some of the feedback we get when we engage on what exactly is happening to black executives at the top, and how they interface with the leadership. Now, this is why ownership is one of the critical issues. Is that the ideology of the owners translates itself into the behavior of the chief executive and their team. On issues of consequence, the CEO will try by all means to toe the line of the principal shareholders' views on those issues, whatever they may be.
Otherwise, they're going to be pushed out.
Otherwise, they'll be pushed out. And we've seen a lot of those issues where CEOs are pushed out. Then they say, no, it is an amicable separation. But you know that there were issues of strategy that they didn't agree on, right? And those things are there. So it really is clarity on the ownership question when there is a critical mass of black ownership in the economy who have got the right ideological sense as well. Then they are able to give their management the space to behave in a certain way. And one of the reasons why black executives right now are challenged to either drive transformation or not, and we've seen a growing trend, by the way, where there's a separation of transformation within the system. So it's not sitting with human resources in terms of accountability. It should be sitting in the CEO's office in terms of accountability. Now there's transformation managers appearing in different industries, the triple B professionals, you're right, appearing. The verification
compliance managers,
verification agencies, most of them are white, by the way. That's another problem. The creation of transformation divisions within organizations. So you can see that corporate business is not quite 100% sure of how to really drive transformation in a more sustainable way. They say it's too costly. In some of the conversations we've had with certain research houses, there's business people saying it is becoming too costly to drive some of these things. We have to pay verification agencies so much money in order to comply, etc. So what is the thinking of top leadership in the country around these things? And it's what we're trying to influence, and the power that black executives do have. Now, if you are good at what you do, this is the other argument. If you are brilliant at what you do, you'll be needed by the business. And it was one of my father's arguments that you must be able to shake up your organization so much and still stay. And still be
because you're excellent.
Because you're excellent, and you are needed. and you execute and you produce, right?
Mm.
And you are transformational at the same time. And he really argued for that for many years. And it's one of the challenges today on really getting to a particular level. And the other thing is that our own leaders, they assimilate. They don't have to. They assimilate at the top instead of really clubbing together. Some of them turn on each other. And when white people can see black leaders turn on each other, then they relax. So, okay, well, these guys are not clear on driving their own agenda. So they will relax. But if there is unity of mind, unity of purpose at the highest leadership echelons in the country, nobody will push back. No one will push back because the agenda is clear and there's leadership that can articulate the views and link, the productivity of the business to transformation and the imperatives thereof and the benefits of having a fully transformed business, even from an employee point of view, because you're bringing in different people who've got fresh minds, different ideas, who come from a particular background, can help the business to further grow in different ways. But if you've got the same static, straight jacket thinking people within your business, how will that also grow? So really, it really needs sober leaders at the top who have a clear view of what they are doing. And then you've got black leaders who get there. They're not interested in transformation. So then you want to take it a step further and say, well, they're not BMF type managers, but so it's black BMF type manager, then there's a black manager.
Okay, that's an interesting distinction there. Because sorry about that. Because I'm looking at the time, and I want us to drive towards the closure of this So you said you're 34 years old. There are very few young people like your age who are involved and intensely, really deeply involved with these kind of discussions, articulate and knowledgeable. Other people at this point are out watching sport, they're out there drinking and doing all sorts of things. And on top of that, you've got this dearth of skills, this absence of skill material in South Africa that can actually take up this transformation agenda. The question is, what is BMF doing to develop and grow leadership talent in South Africa? Secondly, we've had the state capture that came up. Did you have any members that were implicated? What is the position of BMF on people like that? As I said, you don't have to answer every question I ask.
No, I must. It's your show.
Especially if it's going to put you in some awkward space. But I need an answer if you can.
Yeah. Please. So on the state capture issue, we came out quite strongly around, people must be brought to book who were implicated in siphoning and abetting state capture. I mean, that position has been clear. And straightforward. If there are BMF members specifically who are implicated, I mean, the same principle will apply because the organizational position is clear that if there were people involved, not just people, individuals, but companies as well. We also wrote to National Treasury around companies that should be put on ice who are procuring or supplying government with goods and services, who came up in the state capture report. So we've done that. Whether the National Treasury takes us seriously or not, it was a bit radical because we really called for that, to say if these certain specific companies that were spoken of by the incumbent Chief Justice.
Yes.
They must be dealt with, right? So we've mentioned that, and of course that those engagements, are quite robust behind closed doors. But we did make that public. As to, we really gotta. So if there are any individuals, doesn't matter if it's BMF or not, you really need to face the music if there is a case, for them to face the music, because the hollowing out of state organs is a very serious matter, and of course that puts the whole transformation issue on the back bench, because corruption has become so endemic, and we're still touching the surface of it, right? So what is coming out now is old stuff. It's not new stuff per se. It's old things.
And there's new corruption that's coming out almost daily.
There's new corruption. So it's endemic within the system, and it's really sad. It's embarrassing. As black leaders, it is embarrassing, and as a black people, it really is embarrassing, especially when there's a whole commission that must sit on just looking at a few issues, not just looking at all the other issues, just a few issues in terms of reference of the commission, and look how long it took, and even the last report took time to come out as well. So it's you can tell that this is too deeply rooted. It's endemic. You don't know who to trust as black leaders. Who do you trust? Because now the enemy looks like you, right? Before the enemy was easily just said, "Where's the enemy?" There's the enemy there, right? But now say, "Hey, where's the enemy of transformation?" It could be next to you, and it's the reality. You can sit in meetings and discuss these issues, and we can discuss our position as BMF, but it doesn't mean that it will be taken up, by those institutions that we engage. But we do engage industry bodies, government, corporates on a regular basis on what we think should happen and holding them accountable. It may not all be out in the public all the time, but our role in providing thought leadership, providing advocacy work, and some policy work on the side is something that takes place on a daily basis. It's extensive. Okay. It's extensive work. It's heavy.
It's heavy, I'm sure. Yeah.
And you're saying that as a 34-year-old, I would also be wanting to go and play something out there. You can see I'm gray. So we take these opportunities seriously. It's a privilege, to be involved to this extent within the BMF. Like I said, I had never wanted to be involved, and I will always say that because I believe that the BMF found me, not the other way around. So it's a privilege for me to be part of these things. Does the BMF develop leaders? Yes, it's one of our pillars to develop managers.
And how do you do it?
Leaders. And how do we do it? So we've got representation right across. So we've got different tiers of membership. We've got young professionals in the BMF wing. We've got student chapters as well. We've got specific programs that we have within the BMF, and there's new programs we're working on now with other institutions as well. With other institutions of higher learning. We've got partnerships with them. So we've got partnerships with Corporate Education, which is an international institution. We've got a partnership with Gibbs Business School, partnership with Henley Business School, partnership with UCT. We're working on other partnerships as well. Wits Business School is the latest partnership, which we put in the bag a few months ago. It's there as well. So we partner with institutions so that we can roll out specific programs for the benefit of our members. But the greatest aspect of developing leaders is not developing their skill set, in my view. It is developing their value system.
Yeah. Because in fact, what you're saying right there is what Willie Tabe wrote in that article about your father and the ethics and the value system that he had, because that colors and that sort of shapes how you view everything else.
Most definitely, and it is the values that will keep you in those spaces and make you unique, because you find skilled black leaders, but have a questionable value system, and you won't last in those spaces as a black leader if you don't have a clear value system. So the BMF exists also to keep challenging your value system on an
Yeah.
ongoing basis, because that is the
Mm.
basis of leadership. For me, it is a clear set of social values, and the BMF stands as that. We've seen people come and go in the BMF. We've seen different kinds of leaders in the BMF who are members and others not our members, right? But the BMF itself as an idea remains. Tomorrow I can step down and no longer be a member. Doesn't mean the BMF will no longer exist. It will exist because it's an idea. It's not a person. It's not an individual. It has its own cause. It has its own mechanisms. I would even dare say it is spiritual to some extent. Right? The existence of the BMF is spiritual because the cause that we're standing for is a noble one. It's a just cause.
It's a just cause, yeah.
It's a just cause because we've got to develop Black people. We've got to develop our values. We've got to utilize Black people. We'll always need to develop managers, even 100 years from now. We'll always need to develop them. How do you develop them? Who do you partner with? How do you do it? The different programs you roll out, the different dialogues that you have, the issues you advocate for are based on those principles of fairness, justice, and equity. So those
I want to find out something before we move. Sorry. Can you define a bit more that benefit that the member gets from, let's say, the partnerships that you have established with the institutions or whatever? So in other words, do people pay less? There's a discount, do they come and attend courses? So can you just define a bit more that benefit? Because now I'm talking to someone, I want you to talk to someone who may say, I want to be a member of BMF. What's in it for me?
So that question of what's in it for me is an interesting one.
It's against your values.
Sometimes I answer that question by saying you build your own value in the BMF. As much as there's a value proposition for you to be a member, like I've said. So the business model is sitting on 3 legs: management development, dialogues, and advocacy, right? And that is anchored by thought leadership. So coming into the BMF, you're coming into to shape your values. You're coming into dialogue. You're coming into network as well. It's very important to do that. Meeting like-minded people, going out of your way, really, to meet different people. The BMF is so open-minded that as a member, you've got access to a Professor Nkuhlu, for an example. You can meet a Dr. Roel Khoza at a conference or at a discussion. He'll be open to engage you. These leaders are different. They don't come and talk at the BMF or run certain programs at the BMF and disappear. They are open, always open to engagement and to building those relationships. That's part of the art of understanding the soul of the BMF, right? Is sitting and really analyzing what is the DNA of the organization as an individual, as you are viewing all of these leaders. And for me, another thing that really hits me is that these were my father's peers. They worked together. I'm now working with them.
It's fascinating.
So it and they look at you as an equal. Your colleagues. So Ndlovu, what do you think? This is an Eric Mafuna, the founder of BMF, says, Ndlovu, what do you think? What should we do about this? And for me, it really hit me when I finally saw it that way. Took a step back to say, which other organization really is like this? You get the opportunity to reach out to them. You can meet them. You can have engagements with them. And that value, I'm talking about building your own value, because you can be a member and attend dialogues and not do a program and just sit back and not actively build your value. But it's your personal responsibility as a leader
to build the value,
to build your value. Have those engagements, participate participate at branch level, by the way. You select a branch, participate. So don't just come into, I want to do an MBA at Gibbs BMF has got a partnership with Gibbs, so I can apply to do that. Yeah, okay, you can come in to do that, right? But we've got many MBAs in the country, well, not a lot, but many MBAs in the country whose values are questionable, right?
Yeah,
Whose leadership is questionable. So what's going to be different about you having the same MBA, having a Duke MLab qualification, which you are providing, a Duke Women in Power program that you have done, and so you really gotta take a step back. That many of us can do these programs, but what will set us apart? And I'm
what
arguing,
value are you creating in the process?
You are creating value, but what sets us apart is the value system of the BMF, which sets us apart from every other Black leader out there who has the same qualification as you, but you are different because you have been reared up differently by the Black Management Forum.
I feel like we've got to have another conversation at some point, because we couldn't cover everything today. But I promised my daughter to take her somewhere, and I'm sure she's angry where she is. But I want us to sort of draw to a close at this point, and I want to thank you so much for this. Because the last question I'm going to ask you, talking about spirituality, I know that you're a strong spiritual man, and you have strong spiritual values. Can you talk to us a bit more about that, and how is that important in the business setup or leadership setup? And then try and close with as few words as possible, if you can. And I see Ayanda Vezikweyama is here. Good to see you. Younger Duma I know he's your member as well. Tsepo Makwe, Sandra Zungu is here. You've got so many people that are joining and so on. But unfortunately, we are drawing to a close at this point. I just want to hear from you. You grew up in church. You are an active member of a church, and spirituality is important to you. What role does it play in your value formation, in your leadership, in your engagement with people?
Thanks, Elder. Sure, I think spirituality is critical because it enables you to shape your value system, right? So it goes back to the question of values. Then the question is, what informs those values? From a Christian perspective, what should inform those values is a adequate understanding of the biblical text. Then the next question is, do you read the biblical text? And there's all sorts of debates around the biblical text. Is it inspired, not inspired? Why is there 66 books and not, full range bouquet of all the spiritual knowledge out there? My argument is, you can put all of those books that are excluded in the Bible, but it does not necessarily mean it's gonna turn you into the Christian that you should be. And I'm basing that on the fact that very few of us have read even the whole Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Very few. I know I have not embarked on that journey to say, I am going to read from Genesis to Revelation page by page. We keep referencing it. So you go to this book and then you go to that book, but very few of us have actually completed the whole Bible. And for me, then it really puts a question mark to say, then how can you criticize something you have not adequately studied? So and then that takes you to the next thing. Which opportunities are there for you to learn more about the principles and values in the Bible, which inform your spirituality, which shape your value system, which shape how your worldview and the kind of person you want to be? So then you find out in the Bible that you're wonderfully and fearfully made. Now, if you don't read David, you won't know that he said that. So you are wonderfully and fearfully made, and all of us have a purpose. And the Bible makes it clear we all have a purpose, not just a universal purpose, right? To go ye therefore, but within the go ye therefore, there is a Monday therefore, there is a Thomas therefore, there is a Sbusiso, therefore, there's a Duma, therefore, So what is your therefore within the GOI, therefore? Because you all have a role to play, a defined role to play, and you've got to define it yourself. There's no pastor in the world who's going to come and tell you why God allowed you to exist. He or she will be able to articulate why mankind exists, because God loves mankind. But you got to take it a step further and say, no, God loves me as an individual. And what is my purpose? And when it's been revealed to you what your purpose is, then you need the courage to step out and do it, because you understand it. It doesn't mean anyone else ought to understand it. And we all must take that journey of getting to our purpose, etc. And that's why I then said the BMF found me. I didn't find the BMF.
Yeah,
I'm running from the BMF, and that's on record. So it found me, and I accepted that it found me, and I've accepted the role I'm playing, which I've already stated that it's heavy, it's not straightforward. I respect the organization, I respect the role that they've given me, and I've accepted that it's part of who I am now. It will always be a part of me because I share the same values of the organization. I've always had the same drive to see Black people become in the country, and the BMF is really putting in that work to ensure that Black people become. And that's why I believe that it's aligned to our spirituality, because God wants to see all of us become, especially Black people. We must become. And so that's the importance for me of spirituality linking to our values, where it is derived from and why.
Wow. I feel like, I'm going to whisper to you again so that we can carry on. Well, there's so many other questions about how things need to be done practically at the level at which we all are, because we can have the global challenges, but there's also a point where, but I think you've covered quite a lot. You've shared an hour and a half of your time with us. I'm sure a big company would have paid you for that, a lot of money, especially on a Sunday. But man, I want to thank you so much for your time, and for those people that maybe have relatives and others who would want to watch this, they can come to this site, either on Facebook or YouTube channel, and watch this. I'm sorry I couldn't ask all the questions that other people have written here, but because of time constraints, we're going to have to call it a day. But thank you so much. We are back now, and Kulati Coaching and Consulting, we're back. We're gonna have these conversations. We focus on a number of areas, including family, finance, fun, all sorts of personal growth and development, issues of faith, and so on. So we're looking at all those, because the idea is that every person has to grow. We have to receive the insights that we're getting from the people here, but we need to use that to grow wherever we are. And so with that, I want to thank you, Monde, and thank you to our viewers as well.
Thank you very much, my elder. Much appreciated. Thanks for having me on your global platform.
It is indeed. Thank you, man. Thank you. We've got people from Kenya and from Uganda calling in or sending messages. Thank you so much. I can see people already clapping hands, showing how well they appreciate this. Thank you so much again. 2:00 we meet on most Sundays. Please invite your friends, subscribe, and share these videos. My brother, thank you so much, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, my elder. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys at home, I really appreciate your time. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend. If I didn't mention you, I have nothing against you. I love you all. And may God bless us as we start this new week. Thank you. All the best. Thank you, man. I'll be in touch with you.
Thank you.
All right. Take good care. Thank you there at home. And please suggest ideas that you want us to talk about. If you have people that you'd like me to interview and interact with. But exciting things are coming. And please stay tuned here. Thank you so much. All the very best to you all.